Good evening. Welcome to the Dudley Planning Board for May 8th, 2019. Present this evening, we have Russell Giglio, member, Daniel Edmiston, clerk of the board, Carol Savard, clerk, Donald Johnson is our town planner, myself, Guy Horn, chairman. First item on the agenda, approval of meeting minutes from April 24th, 2019. Anybody have a chance to review those minutes?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I was able to read through the minutes. I find them in order, and I make a motion that we approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of acceptance of April 24th meeting minutes?
Aye. Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Item B, discussion, status report on finishing construction of and acceptance of uncompleted, unaccepted subdivision streets, including Pierpont Estates, Rocky Hill Estates, Piastra Road, Country View Estates, Eisenhower Drive, Tobin Farm Estates.
Tony Zucchera came in and asked questions about whether or not he actually needs a hearing because he's constructing a paper street, but it wasn't part of the subdivision plan in the first place, so I think he does need it. He's going to have his attorney send us an opinion. That's the last we've seen of that one. I don't have any more on that one. Nothing more than any of the others either.
So that was the only one that we've had any action on?
That's it.
Okay.
Those other two we're looking at didn't make town meetings, so
They're not going to make it
it'll be next year.
for next year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me, could you move the mic a little, you can't hear one thing.
There's not going to be any, there's no speakers in this room.
Oh, all right.
Sorry.
Okay, well, okay.
We can talk up.
That was about subdivisions. That wasn't about anything.
Dangerous.
Yeah.
Okay. So item C is AMP Solar. Is there anything going on with that one?
Nothing new.
Nothing new. So that they're basically done, but they still need to do their landscaping
They
and,
need to do a lot of finished landscaping, that's right.
okay,
Check the drainage and all that sort of thing.
all right. And item D, planning board vote on reports on articles for zoning bylaw amendments on the May 2020, 2019 annual town meeting. Warrant including housekeeping measures, hearing held on 4/24/2019, adding provisions for accessory use apartments and amending the definitions of two-family/duplex homes, hearing held on 4/24/2019, definitions of kennels, hearing to be held on 5/8/2019, citizens petition regarding large-scale photovoltaic solar overlay district, hearing to be held on 5/8/2019. So we can vote on the housekeeping and we can vote on the accessory use and the duplexes.
Right.
So this is an item D. So this is going to be Article 23 on the warrant,
That's correct.
and that's all the housekeeping articles.
That's correct. Well, it's actually one article.
It's one article, but all the housekeeping
Yeah,
items.
the issues, yeah.
All right. And then the next one that we're going to have is Article 28.
Article 23, actually. Isn't it 24?
23.
28 is the town clerk's article. I just put that there for some reference if you need to.
Okay, 23 and 24.
23, 24, looking at 29 and 34 tonight.
Okay. All right, so based on our previously held public hearing, we can vote tonight on Article 23 and 24. 23 being the housekeeping items and the zoning, and 24 is accessory use apartments and amending the definition of two-family duplex homes. All right. So would somebody like to make a motion for Article 23?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for Article 23, to approve that for the annual town meeting.
Okay. we have a
Recommend
motion.
approval as printed in the warrant.
Say that again?
Recommend approval as printed in the warrant, I think is what,
Recommend approval to
as printed in the
Put 'em on the
warrant.
put it in the warrant.
As printed,
It's printed in the
As
warrant.
printed.
as printed in the
Right.
warrant.
That's printed in the
Yeah.
warrant. Figures I messed that up.
No problem. So we have a motion to approve Article 23 as printed in the warrant. Do we have a second?
I'll second that, but just one quick question. Don, these are the same things you sent out to us on Monday, right?
Yesterday, that's about the
Was it
email.
yesterday?
Yeah, right, it's the same thing.
All right. I'll second the motion.
Okay.
It's also the same thing I sent out to you on Thursday as well. But this is, it actually appears in the warrant.
Okay.
You have it in
Did
front of you.
Did you want to go through them all, Dan?
No, I read them whenever Don sent them on.
Yeah,
I
it's
thought it
in-
was
it's-
Monday, but maybe it was yesterday. Time
It was
flies.
yesterday, yeah, I sent it out yesterday
Okay.
afternoon.
Okay.
All right, so I
But
read
yeah,
them
this
then,
is
and
exactly,
they were
this
what we
is
talked
direct,
about.
this is straight from the warrant.
Yeah, all right.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second on Article 23 as written for the warrant. And again, this is housekeeping issues that have to do with the zoning bylaws. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. That's Article number 23. Article number 24. Article 24 is having to do with the definitions of two-family homes and duplex homes. We already had a public hearing on this. Would somebody like to make a motion?
Also amending the use table to make things a little bit clearer.
Say that again, Don?
Amending the use table as well, adding it as a new accessory use, wasn't listed before. Okay.
You know, the footnotes were changed, right?
Added. Yeah.
18, yeah, so footnotes 18 and 19 were added.
17, 18, and 19.
17, 18, and 19 were added. And they do have the 400 square feet versus the 750, so.
One thing that was brought to my attention, somehow 3 words get chopped off in the accessory use apartment definition. See what it says at the end, it says, this is on page 5 of your handout. It says, from one unit directly into, and it stops. It should say the other unit. So 3 words should be added. as far as
Item
the
number
motion.
3.
Right,
See what it says from one unit directly into?
yep,
Should say the other unit should be in there.
okay. So we'll just amend that on the floor?
Yeah, recommend amending it on the floor.
Okay.
That's part of the recommendation, I think.
All right. All right, so we'd be looking for a motion to approve or to recommend Article 24 as written with the addition under accessory use apartment definition at the end to add what 3 words again, Don?
The other unit.
The other unit. So there's 3 words missing. The other unit is missing from the definition.
Somehow they get lost in translation.
Okay.
Make a motion.
We have a motion. We have a second.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous? Okay. So I'll take care. Sure. We have a couple of minutes before we can start the public hearing for this evening, so Dawn, if you don't mind, we'll skip down to discussion, item E, discussion on the status of economic development planning, including progress on the EEA Planning Assistance Grant with Webster for economic development / commercial corridor planning, relationship to Phase 2 Economic Development Strategic Plan, DLTA funding, submission of an MVP Planning Assistance Grant application, progress on agricultural planning, Recreation Committee, Recreation Commission, Complete Streets Workshop, May 15th.
I don't have anything in the Recreation Commission because they haven't formed yet, but I just wanted to bring everybody's attention to it. It's coming.
Okay.
The Agricultural Committee had their first meeting a few weeks ago, so they're up and running.
Okay.
The MVP grant, I spent a good part of last week developing that. You know, we communicated about that a little bit. I gave you a copy of it, and there's also a hard copy in your notebook.
Okay.
And that's about all that's done there.
Okay. I see we have the Chairman of the Economic Development in the audience. Would you like to give an update?
John Breyer, Chairman, Economic Development.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, the Agricultural Commission actually had their first meeting. They elected their officers. Victor Calgren is the new chairman. They set up a meeting schedule for the rest of 2019. It is the first Thursday of the month in this room at 7 p.m., and that's been posted with the town clerk. So, you know, the attendance has been great. You know, they've got a great email distribution list where they're keeping everybody informed. And so what they're tackling now is kind of, you know, what are their core mission, you know, for the rest of the year and some of the things they want to do. Remind about the Strawberry Festival coming up June 20th. They're looking for volunteers. We did meet with the Board of Selectmen for the Recreation Commission, and pretty much decided that it should be Selectman Sullivan and Marcy who will lead the formation of that commission. And the most logical thing to do, because it's initially a 5-member commission, eventually they'll tie in like the beach to it, the rail trail, and some of these other recreational. But the initial thought is that anybody that's doing any volunteer work with the beaches and stuff now, extend that invitation out to them first, so that they could be on this commission. And then the only other thing is, with the mill, we're having difficulty having the owner of the mill respond to a couple of different developers. So my understanding is the town administrator in the town has brought suit against the mill owner through the housing court for a bunch of repairs and safety issues that need to be addressed, that haven't been addressed. And so maybe we'll get them to show up at a court here and we'll see what's going on there.
Are we still dealing with the same owner?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
On record with the town and with the registry, that's still him.
Okay.
We had heard that the banks had taken it. We had heard a bunch of different things, but on record officially, nothing's changed with the registry or anything yet.
And do you know if he's currently up to date with the town on taxes?
Not any longer.
Okay.
He was seriously delinquent to the point where I thought the town was gonna have to get it. Paid him up, and now the last I looked, which was about 2 weeks ago, well, actually more like a week ago, he was behind again,
Okay.
substantially.
Okay.
So that's kind of the latest update. Working with Don. Don's been fantastic in finding grants, and you know, he's been kind of spearheading the Webster Dudley particular grant and trying to work together, and you know, where we have synergies, you know, taking advantage of those. So, did I cover everything, Don?
Sounds good to me.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, Russell's back. All right, so we can start the public hearing, which is 17.
Well, I forgot to include the hearing notice.
Do you have it?
I have one.
Is it in here?
I'm sorry, I forgot to include it in the packet.
Is it in there? The package right there that's under your phone?
Yeah.
Just need to read it for the announcement,
I'm
right?
going to read it for the announcement. You know, put a copy in the book. So, for the newspaper, that's good enough.
Don't mind the fine print.
Okay,
Did we read it off? Are we good?
let me see how big it is.
I think it's the third column over, isn't it?
Yeah, holy crap. Okay, you wanna try it?
Yeah.
It's really small. Okay.
Need a magnifying glass.
Do you want me to start with one, go to the other, and then make sure you
Read the whole thing. Okay. We'll 7:17, we'll start the public hearing, and Russell will read the notification.
Notice is hereby given that pursuant to MGL Chapter 40A, Section 5, the Dudley Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, May 8th, 2019, at 7:15 PM, in the Dudley Municipal Complex, room this says 321A, we moved it to 315, 71 West Main Street, Dudley, Massachusetts, 01571, to review and receive public input on 2 proposed articles to amend the zoning bylaws of the town of Dudley, Massachusetts, which are expected to be on the warrant for the May 20th, 2019 annual town meeting. All interested parties may appear and be heard. These 2 articles are summarized as follows. First one, to amend the zoning bylaws of the town of Dudley, Massachusetts relative to kennels as follows. Unless otherwise described, the language within the terms, items noted below in strike-through is proposed to be deleted, and language shown in bold and italics is proposed to be added. 1, amend section 2.03.02, use by district chart, activity or use residential. License residential animal kennel by deleting the words license, residential, and animal, and inserting in their place the word personal. Item 2, amend section 2.03.02, use by district chart, activity or use, commercial, animal kennel or hospital by A, deleting the word kennel, and inserting it in place of the words veterinary clinic, and B, modifying said chart such that this is prohibited within the Res 10, Res 15, Res 30, Res 43, and Res 87 zoning districts, allowed by special permit within the Business 15, Light Industrial 43, and Light Industrial 87 zoning districts, and allowed as a matter of right in the Industrial 43 and Industrial 130 zoning districts. Item 3, amend section 2.03.02, use by district chart, activity or use commercial by item A, adding the uses commercial boarding or training kennel, commercial breeder kennel, domestic charitable cooperation kennel, and veterinary kennel, and B, adding to said chart relative to these uses within the respective zoning districts, such that the commercial boarding or kennel, training, domestic charitable cooperation kennel, and veterinary kennel uses are prohibited within the residential 10, residential 15, residential 30, residential 43, and residential 87 zoning districts, allowed by special permit within the Business 15, Light Industrial 43, and Light Industrial 87 zoning districts, and allowed as a matter of right in the Industrial 43 and Industrial 130 zoning districts. And they use commercial breeder kennel as prohibited use within all zoning districts. Item number 4, amend section 2.03.03, footnotes. Footnote number 13 by deleting the words residential animal and inserting in their place the word personal. In section 5, and amend section 6, definition 6.01.00, purpose 6.01.01, definitions listed by A, modifying the existing term animal kennel or hospital by deleting the word kennel and inserting in its place the phrase or veterinary clinic, and modifying its definition by deleting the phrase harboring and inserting in its place the word medical, and removing the phrases more than 3 and that are more than 6 months old. And B, adding the terms animal control officer, kennel, commercial boarding or training kennel, commercial breeder kennel, domestic charitable corporation kennel, personal kennel, and veterinary kennel in their definitions. And C, deleting the existing item licensed residential animal kennel in its definition in their entirety. A copy of the full text of the amendment is available for inspection in the planning board office or the town clerk's office, which is located in the Dudley Municipal Complex, 71 West Main Street, Dudley, Massachusetts, 01571 during normal working hours. The second item, a citizen's petition to amend the zoning bylaws of the town of Dudley, Massachusetts, section 3.12.00, large-scale solar voltaic bylaw. In accordance with Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources model for siting of large ground-mounted solar voltaic installations, which discourages locations that result in significant loss of land, including farm and forest land. The use of solar overlay districts are prohibited in residential districts, which is residential 10, residential 15, residential 30, residential 43, and residential 87. Commercial districts, business 15, light industrial districts, light industrial 43, and light industrial 87. Conservation districts, historical districts, and floodplain district. Large ground-mounted solar voltaic installations are allowed as of right in the industrial districts and industrial 43 and industrial 130 and the town refuse disposal district. This bylaw is not intended to regulate systems of less than 250 kilowatts or roof-mounted systems. It is not intended to regulate systems that are consumptive power systems, where all the power that is generated is utilized to power on-site operations. A copy of the full text of this amendment is available for inspection in the Planning Board office or the Town Clerk's office, which is located at Dudley Municipal Complex, 71 West Main Street, Dudley, Massachusetts, 01571, during regular working hours. The complete text of these two articles and associated maps and zoning map, Town of Dudley, and zoning bylaws of the Town of Dudley, Massachusetts may be viewed in the Planning Board office or the Town Clerk's office, which is located at the Dudley Municipal Complex, 71 West Main Street, Dudley, Massachusetts, 01571, during regular working hours. The public board will receive public input at the public hearing. Any person interested or wishing to be heard should appear at the time and place designated. If you wish to comment but are unable to attend, please submit written comments to the Planning Board office before 4:30 p.m. on Monday, May 8th. Guy E. Horn, Chairman, Dudley Planning Board. Dated April 24th, 2019 and May 1st, 2019.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so the first one we're going to address is Article 28 and 29, which have to do with the...
It's actually 29, because 28 is the one the town clerk's submitting with the town bylaw. I just put it in there for reference so that we can see that if there are any questions about.
Okay,
how they
I
match
thought
up
they
and
were,
line up.
I thought they were both connected. They're not.
No, the hearing's only on 29, actually. It's
Okay.
It's only an article. I just put that in there for reference to see how they line up together.
Okay. All right, so, yep, planning board article. Okay, so our sponsored article is going to be Article 29, amend the zoning bylaws for uses, for kennel uses in the town. Basically, just to give you some history, this came about because we had a resident in town that is raising Bernie doodles. And basically, the state outlines the kennel bylaws differently than the town was regulating them. So basically, what we're doing now is adopting what the state guidelines are for kennels, because we were lacking a personal kennel.
Particularly that one, yes.
We were lacking the definition for a personal kennel, which this individual needed to have enacted for her business to continue in Dudley.
It was sort of involved, too, with, it was kind of mixed in with veterinary hospital.
With the
Sort of
vet-
mixed in with the definition of kennels, so we sort of separated those two.
Okay, so at the same time, Don's saying we're pulling out the definition for veterinarian hospitals and keeping it separate from the kennel bylaw. So this was worked on by Dawn, town council, and our town clerk, I believe.
Town clerk, I worked with the building inspector somewhat, too.
Town clerk, building inspector, and was the dog officer
Yeah,
involved?
she was involved, too. That's
And the
right.
dog officer. So basically, we're trying to reflect what the state is providing for guidelines, so that we're not that much different than what the state allows. And once this passes, her business is going to be okay, from what I understand?
Yes, so, but apparently she's moving.
She's leaving town by the end of the month, moving out.
She's moving out
of
anyway.
state, actually.
Oh, okay,
But nevertheless, it'll be consistent with the state
okay.
definitions. That
So
was
we'll
the
have,
idea.
we're losing a business, basically, because our bylaw wasn't in place, but we'll have it changed, so the next business will be ready for the next business, basically. Okay. Does anybody want to comment on this bylaw change for kennels? Okay. So then I guess we're on to Article 34, which is the petition article for the amendment to the large-scale solar voltaic bylaw. And we'll open it up for public hearing, public discussion.
John Bright here is a private citizen.
Okay.
All right, gotta clarify. I have nothing against solar. And I know the town's in a unique situation because, right, the town gets revenue from these solar agreements. And when you look at different things that could go on that land, solar is one of those things that is probably the least impactful as far as expenses for the town, right? I mean, solar cells don't go to schools and things along those lines, and so in theory, you're pretty good. And I think the town gave the current solar overlay district bylaw, when it was passed a couple of years ago, the benefit of the doubt, and said, yeah, let's run with it. It sounds good in theory. And in looking at when it was passed to where it is today, I think there's issues. And I'll use as an example the Shepherd Hill project, right? I mean, I think that project killed the confidence of 90% of the residents in town when it comes to solar and what it can be. And then I start seeing other things that are occurring. Right now, the governor is pushing this housing bill that looks like it's got Senate and legislative support, and that's going to reduce the threshold for towns to, instead of going with a supermajority, 2/3 at town meeting for zoning bylaws, is going to be 50% plus one. Now the towns will enact that. So you look at that, and the fact that the solar overlay district is technically a zoning, right? It requires 2/3 today. 2 months from now, it only may require 50% plus one because that's what the state says. Now, I think the state is going to allow cities and towns to opt into the 50% or stay the 2/3. The American Planners Association, the Mass Plan Association is the one behind this thing, which is, I think a little dangerous. But I signed this petition as a citizen because I think you got a fresh board, and I think it's a good opportunity to take a step back and look at our solar overlay district, the whole bylaw. It works for the mills because, right, you're talking a specific geographically defined area. And so we have the mill overlay district, and it works because everybody knows that if you buy a house in a mill overlay district, that mill has the ability to expand and do a whole bunch of things around that mill. The problem with the solar overlay district is there are no limitations. The whole town could technically become an overlay district. And so where you think you're safe, next to a farm or pasture land, all of a sudden you could have this large mega complex go up. The problem with these companies that are putting up these mega complexes is most of them are financially unsound today. I was just in Amsterdam, and I've got some pictures. They're building these solar farms on spec. There's a lot of Wall Street money behind these guys. They're taking advantage of these federal subsidies. And you read reports that says, 3 out of 5 of them will be out of business in the next 5 years. It's the solar farm I went by in Amsterdam, and I'll show you a picture. It's just massive. They never got permission from the electric company to hook up. The electric company has denied them the hookups because their lines simply can't handle the volume. And so you have this huge complex that was built on speculative money that's not going to be able to produce any revenue, and it's just sitting there. Our bylaws don't protect us from those situations. We don't require, I believe, electric company approval that if a solar farm goes in, that they have permission from the electric company to tie in. And, we talk about the time bomb 20 years from now, just like we face with subdivisions. Most of the companies that are bonding these projects are not even rated positively by AM Best. So these performance bonds that these companies are putting up are from basically shell companies that 5 or 10 years from now are going to be out of business. These solar farms are going to be abandoned, and you're going to be faced with who does the cleanup. And because most of this stuff is made in China, and it contains heavy metals, it's a time bomb. So I think this is a so when I saw the citizens petition, I said, this is a wonderful timeout. Let's really look at it. And I also believe that you need to pick an area in town and say, this is going to be the area where the solar is going to be. This potential of it changing from town meeting to town meeting and people just not knowing what tomorrow is going to bring. I think it works for the Mill Overlay District, but I don't think it works for the Solar Overlay District. And that's just my personal opinion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So if I could just explain a little bit on the Mill Overlay District, what Mr. Briere was talking about. We have that in place today on all the mills that are in town. The Solar Overlay District is town-wide, but to get a parcel of land in this town approved for a large-scale solar array, would have to go to town meeting, and that parcel would have to get approved first before the applicant could submit any kind of paperwork or project specifications to the planning board. First the approval of the lot has to be approved. And currently in town right now, we have about 25% of the town in APR land, agriculturally protected or chapter land. None of that land is open for this to happen. So if you live next to an APR protected piece of land or chapter land, they're not going to be coming to us and asking, can we put this in the overlay district? Because it's not going to happen. If you happen to live next to a piece of land that's owned by the Dudley Conservation, is it Dudley Conservation?
Land trust?
The land trust, yeah. If you happen to live next to a land trust land, it's not going to be considered. That's already in conservation. So it's basically parcels of land that people currently own, whether they're in the zone that's rated for it, which right now is only the industrial zones, or not. You may have a situation where you have a piece of land that's, on the border with another town. I'm going to bring up one that we approved 2 years ago, which why this overlay district was put in for. There was a piece of land that abutted Oxford, was on Oxford Ave, high on top of a hill, next to a gravel pit, and abutting Dudley Land Trust land. So, not going to affect any residents. And at the time, this person who owned this property couldn't do a solar field on this property. That's why we enacted the overlay district so that this property could be considered. It went to town meeting, it was explained, people said, okay, we don't mind having a solar farm on this piece of property on the border with Oxford and on the border with a gravel pit and on the border with Dudley
Conservation
Land Trust. Yeah, sorry.
The topography was kind of difficult too on that one.
Right, and it's a high piece of land, so even when you're driving by in a car, you're not gonna see anything. At the most, you might see a fence on this piece of property. So that's why we came up with the overlay district. The overlay district gives the other pieces of land in town that are not agriculturally protected or chapter land the ability to do the same thing. A person or a landowner could come to the planning board and say, can I get my piece of land put on, could we have a petition article? They could do it by petition or they could do it through the planning board. But the planning board will have to recommend it either way. Go to town meeting and then everybody at town meeting can vote. Where is this piece of land? How big is it gonna be? What's the detriment to the town? Are they cutting down 40 acres of forest, or are they gonna put it in a field that's existing? Is it gonna be visible to the high school? Is it gonna be visible to people who drive by every day, or is it gonna be visible to one neighbor? That's what we have the chance to look at right now, the way it's set up. Any proposals going forward get scrutinized from the standpoint of that piece of land. They would come and ask for permission at the planning board, or they could write a petition article, take it to town meeting. Somebody has to explain it, planning board has to give approval, and then it gets voted on at town meeting. It has to get voted on, as Mr. Briere said, right now by 2/3 majority vote. Depending on not if the town of Dudley changes that to 50% plus one, or it stays at 2/3, that's going to be up to the people at town meeting when it comes time to vote. Do they want to keep zoning articles at 2/3, or do they want to make it 50% plus one? So right now, the way it's set up, we have the option for landowners to come in and propose it. It doesn't mean it's going to be approved. The other thing that I'll just address with that Mr. Briere said was, whether or not these solar farms have to go to the power company. Well, around here they have to, as far as I know, because they, if they have to get their solar credits, which is through the power company and through the state. And once they get that all set up, that's when they can make a proposal to come forward to the town and show how big of a solar array they propose to put in. And they have to have a connection point. They can't just build something and let it sit there. It has to be able to be connected. I mean, if you look at where these places go, you look on the telephone poles, they're where three-phase power is. They need three-phase power to hook in. If they don't have it, they run poles to get there. If you look at, a perfect example, because I know everybody's seen it, you look at the one that's right in front of the high school, look at the telephone poles that come out, the road where it comes out to Dudley Charlton Road. There's at least 6 or 8 telephone poles they put in along that road, and you look at the top, there's 3 wires running down each pole, and it goes right into the connection on Dudley Oxford Road, and that's because there's three-phase power there. So,
So that's my question, right? Does this current solar bylaw
Yeah.
require them, in our bylaw, to present you with the power company's pre-approvals and tie-in schematics prior to the application?
we've actually had members of National Grid come to public hearings and explain it to us, how it was gonna be done on the one for Farley Road, off of Farley Road, and the one for Nextdale. They came.
And that's good, but does our bylaw require them to have that approval ahead of? And that's what I'm saying is, I think this is a wonderful opportunity to say, okay, let's make sure our bylaw covers this stuff ahead of time.
That paper should be in the town's hand first.
And I know you talk about the piece on Oxford Ave. You got to remember the history of that. Originally, that piece was zoned industrial. It was done at town meeting, and it was rezoned to residential. And then, it didn't work out. Then they wanted to be rezoned back to industrial. And then the whole solar thing. So if they would have kept it originally, according to when it was rezoned during the master plan, it would have been a non-issue, and the solar overlay district wouldn't exist today.
Right.
Richard Raymond, Corbin Road. First of all, thank you for the time to speak, Mr. Chairman, and your board. I
Could
noticed.
you please sign in, and John, if you get a chance?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
You're the first guy that ever said they couldn't hear me.
No, I was asking you if you could sign in, so.
I will sign in.
Thank you.
I'll sign it.
Before you're done.
The, John hit on a couple of good points, the previous speaker, and listening intently to what you had to say, you made a lot of good points. However, there's some gaps in those points that we have concerns about, and that's what took place around this time last year, which one of the proposed land sites was going to be put up in lieu of taxes to fix a town road. And it was going to be off a road that's well-traveled, by a lot of people, including school buses, and it's a main travel route to and from Charlton and part of Oxford, being off Ramstown Road. That fell into the present bylaw structure. So I think this proposal under the citizens petition is more to, let's stop, fighting or researching to death every time somebody makes an application, if we can narrow the application down to its intent. And the intent is, solar's fine. Just put it where it should be. And it shouldn't be in a broad-based overlay in residential areas. And quite frankly, that's the concern. Dudley has always been, and I don't really see anybody looking to make change, because that's what draws people to this town, has always been more of a farming residential community. Yes, everybody's looking to find a way to make a buck. Everybody, including the town, because I've heard from some of the town fathers that this would be a great source of revenue. Well, I don't know if the source of revenue is going to be so great, particularly when we start doing things in lieu of taxes to fix a road. Where's the revenue there? That's just deferring somebody else's actions, versus ours. This can happen anywhere. And I think the petition has been well drafted to not discourage totally solar arrays. Put them where they belong. If homeowners want to put them on a house, put them on a house. If a large farm wants to put one in for their own power consumption, put it in for your power consumption. And if there's something we're missing in this petition, I think it should be brought out at this hearing and addressed. But to go to a town meeting every time there's a concern, it's a very difficult thing to do. We all know how difficult it is even to get a quorum at town meetings, So people aren't as vigilant as they used to be years ago. They're relying on other people. We rely too much on you and your board. We rely too much on the zoning board. We rely, whatever they say. And sometimes you guys are put in positions of, well, it sounds like a good idea because I'm not hearing any opposition. Well, a lot of times that not hearing any opposition is just because of people's busy life, and technology today is just taking them off in another direction. To rely on a town meeting, I think, for areas of how your town is shaped and formed in today's day and age, maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago it was okay, but it's very dangerous today because you have a very difficult time to get the pulse for town at the town meeting. Unless small groups come together and start generating interest, to get people to the town meetings. But we see what happens there. That becomes viewed as a special interest. That group has a special interest there, so you have positive, negative, right off the bat. People just take sides and don't really listen to the facts. If we have a bylaw, all right, that pretty much captures what we mean, rather than a total overlay and, well, when it's your turn, come see us, we'll discuss it then. I think we'd be much better off, and I think it's one of the reasons for this petition, and hopefully we can get the planning board to support the petition. I appreciate the public hearing and a chance to speak, but I think Ms. Barrett made very good points overall. Before the meeting even started, I had asked him being the chairman of the Economic Development Committee, where did this fall in the plan of the Economic Development Committee insofar as revenue to the town, or what's in the interest of the town? And I'm not going to say dead last, but it was damn close to dead last of concern. And so therefore, the town itself, in the research by that Economic Development Committee, doesn't see this, the solar projects that could take place and just take off, all right, but by people not being vigilant, as a benefit to the town insofar as the income to the town or the economic development of the town. So once again, thank you for the time to speak, and I'll sign in.
Thank you.
You're not getting up until you do.
That's okay.
That's it? That's it?
Before I sign in, this is 17 pages on the mess Rhode Island is in. Rhode Island has a lot of very, very small towns, and they were not prepared for solar development. And the land, forest, field, farm is being eaten up by these areas. So I wanted to share that with you folks. I'm Mary Sansucci, and I'm the one who initiated this petition.
Okay.
And these are the reasons that I initiated this petition. It's a manufacturing process. It does not belong in a residential area, and Webster's definition of a manufacturing process is to make or process a raw material into a finished product. That does not belong in a residential area. I also feel very strongly that anyone living in a residential area in Dudley or moving to Dudley to a residential area should have the security of knowing that one of these large installations will not be their neighbor. I think we're all entitled to that. The other thing is, When you have a roadway and you have a grade going up or a grade going down, and in front of Shepherd Hill is probably the good example, there is no order of conditions that I can think of that you can put on that array to block the view from the public. Those half-dead eastern white pine trees in front of Shepherd Hill, none of these people in this room will live long enough to see those block the array. The other part of that, and I hate to keep picking on that installation, but they cleared the land where they put the installation, but there's tons of invasive species all around that installation, and I'm wondering if your order of conditions ever mentions that. Dudley has incredible invasive species, incredible. The newest one is Japanese knotweed. It's so invasive that if you break it off or cut it, when it hits the ground, if a leaf node touches the ground, it can send out roots. It was brought to this country as an ornamental in the 1800s, but it sure isn't an ornamental anymore.
Your point to that, Mary, is these invasive plants are going to...
Well, if you don't control them, they're going to be everywhere. For instance, that knotweed, when you come off of, is it Center Road or Ramshorn Road to turn towards Shepherd Hill, and you see the back end of Nichols Golf Course, it's about this high right now, and it's an arrow-shaped leaf with a reddish stem. Probably you would drive by and say it's bamboo, but it's in the buckwheat family. And I just think there should be orders of conditions for all of this sort of thing when these big arrays come in and clear land and then just leave it. I think solar arrays in residential areas are the epitome of spot zoning, the absolute epitome of spot zoning. Every single time one of these goes in, don't you have to change the zoning map in town? I just don't think that's right.
The lot would be added to the overlay district.
Okay.
Yep.
It doesn't change the zoning, though, to say, to from one designation to another. That's all.
It still stays residential,
Correct.
but it's residential with a manufacturing process taking place on the land. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. And I also think it decreases property values tremendously. And I think anyone that is abutting that in a residential area should get a break on their taxes. I really do. And when you clear-cut wooded land, you lose that ability for the trees to soak up water. It changes the water table enormously. And then you have the trees that are not taking up CO2 anymore and producing oxygen. That's huge, and there's a lot about that in that Rhode Island thing that I gave you. And it takes 4 to 6 acres to generate 1 kilowatt of power. 4 to 6 acres of an array.
You sure it's not megawatts?
It's megawatt, I just read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, megawatt,
Megawatt,
okay,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
There's a difference.
Yeah, yeah, sorry. So those are my thoughts. That's what got me going on this, and I sincerely hope that this passes at the town meeting. I certainly hope we have a quorum this year. I always worry about that. And I think everyone in Dudley should come out, have a discussion at the town meeting, and vote on this. It's very, very important. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak?
Hello. I'm Kathy Hurst of Camelot Circle, and I've been, ever since this petition has come up, I've been looking up reasons why this is important. to place some restrictions on where these facilities can be located. I made some notes, I must have about 25 different articles. I could email them all to your board if you like, but just just to give a little sneak peek of some of the things that I learned. And this was from a Massachusetts conservation site. And it does say the careful site selection for renewable facilities of all types is important to minimize the loss and fragmentation of wildlife habitat, as well as forests, farmlands, and wetlands that sequester carbon and provide other functions and values. The lands are an important part of resilience for people and nature. These types of solar projects should be placed, when possible, building arrays should be on developed or altered sites such as brownfields, old industrial sites, or depleted gravel pits. These are preferable to building on previously underdeveloped land such as green fields. One thing that came from the Department of the DOER, which is the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources. And the article states that the department has produced a model zoning bylaw to protect and assist communities with zoning for solar arrays. Siting preferences. Where a solar facility is sited, as well as placement on the site once selected, it is an important consideration, particularly in regard to large-scale ground-mounted facilities. DOER strongly discourages locations that result in significant loss of land and natural resources, including farms and forest land, and encourages rooftop siting as well as locations, again, in industrial and commercial districts. Significant tree cutting is problematic because of the important water management, cooling, and climate benefits that the trees provide. Mass Audubon also agrees with this guidance and encourages communities to adopt zoning bylaws that guides the placement of solar arrays to appropriate locations, taking in account local natural resources, and is consistent with good land use planning principles. I was planning to print up it was too small, and I tried to make it larger and print it, and then the printer stopped working, so I took some. This I couldn't even read off of this, so this was from about the environmental impacts of utility scale solar energy, and it's from Science Direct. And it's a chart, and it was just a good quick reference, but you don't have it in front of you. Like I said, I could email it to you. But it just gives a quick checklist of potential effects on environment. CO2 and other greenhouse gas emissions. That leads to how important our trees are, and it does take out the CO2, and has a lot to do with recharging the aquifers that we have for water resources. Another potential effect is changes in albedo. I had to look that up. I didn't know what scientific word, but basically that is the proportion of light and radiation that's reflected off of any surface, whether it be off the surface of the moon or off the surface of solar panels. Changes in land surface temperature. Again, trees, shade, the whole ecological process that keep our temperatures stable. Changes in microclimate and local hydrology. Again, with water runoff, if you have to take down large areas of trees, it can affect stormwater runoff and wetlands and the whole flow of how the water reaches us. Also, electromagnetic field effects, erosion to the soil, dust production. I'm certain that that's in the process. Fire hazards. Many fire departments are seeing, being called to these sites for somehow, whether it's the solar arrays themselves, or maybe the materials within them that get charged and set off a spark. Land use and land cover change and light and noise pollution. So how does that affect ecological responses? There's the alteration of nutrients, barriers to the genoflow, exotic plant invasions, that's what Mary was talking about. You start changing the area for some of the invasive plants that you don't want to propagate. Biodiversity loss, biota displacement, animals and plant life, changes the whole natural habitat. Habitat loss, reduced visibility, release of soil-borne pathogens, mortality and species loss, and water stress. There's one last thing I had here for you. It was on forests. And this just is one of the components of, and it's so light to read, you can see my printer was dying. In many regions, upland forests and trees are a key importance to hydraulic functionings of the watersheds. Forested areas generally have higher groundwater recharge rates than other types of land cover, making them important to the maintenance of aquifer volume and groundwater quality. Also, since trees sequester carbon, clear-cutting of forests to produce green energy is not sustainable. In addition, land clearing, coverage with structures, and fencing destroy wildlife habitat, a particular consideration in areas of high sensitivity. So the sites that should be looked at is what we are hoping that this bylaw can accomplish, is placing the solar arrays in areas that are already are brownfields, you know, they're industrial sites, commercial settings, rather than deforestation of large areas of acres of land or in residential areas. And I hope that you can support this for our town. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak?
Good evening. My name is John Swayze. I'm at 30 Corbin Road. And I wanted to begin, just keep my remarks brief, but I wanted to thank Ms. Sansucci for bringing this forward. I only found out about this measure that was being put forth today, just this afternoon, in fact. So I'm a little late to the game, and shame on me for that, but I really appreciate you doing that, bringing this forward. And I wanted to thank the speakers who came before me, especially my neighbors on Corbin Road, and I support everything that has been said very well before. And just wanted to address one basic aspect of what I understand to be the use of solar overlay. I'm not going to be as kind as the previous speakers about the array that popped up that's visible from Corbin Road 7 months out of the year for me and for most of my neighbors. I'm not going to be kind about the one that popped up in front of Shepherd Hill. Those are absolute abortions. They are terrible to look at. They diminish the character of our town. That was known going into it, and that still went forward. Now, the residents of this town were properly dismayed and shocked, and we brought forward bylaws changes that were approved at town meeting. That was the will of the people. That was the will of the people to bring that forward. It was passed, and it certainly appears to the layman that the abuse of an overlay to petition for what essentially are carve-outs is short-circuiting the will of the people. This town put forward these ideas for a reason, and they should not have the ability, there shouldn't be the ability to have these, and I'm not going to call them farms. These are not farms. These are industrial arrays popping up and having to fight at every town meeting we come to, where we do worry about getting a quorum. Basically, I don't understand the purpose of zoning if these carve-out exist. There's just seems to be no reason to have zoning in the first place. I would urge everybody, especially at home who's watching, to please come to the town meeting to pass this. It's an important measure, and I just got to say that if you want to destroy the character of a town like Dudley in a hurry, you do it in this way. You do it with these solar arrays. And I understand the town's looking for revenue, but this is not the way to achieve it. Thank you, and I appreciate you giving time.
Anyone else?
Sit down, Jack. He's only going to parrot what his wife said anyways. I just want to give a little support to what, John Breyer said earlier about the, for lack of a better description, fly-by-night companies. They come in, they've set stuff up, and they take what they can get out of it, and all of a sudden, 5 years later, they're no longer a viable company. We've seen that happen in power generation with power plants. For example, the power plant in Charlton, okay, has been owned by about 6 different companies so far, okay? And right now, they're actually owned by an investment company, which is owned by Goldman Sachs, and they hire a servicing group to run them. And what happens is they're all LLC companies that take a quick hit to something, take advantage of tax laws, take advantage of what's going on today in the world, and how can I make a quick buck and get out of here? And if I'm an LLC, I'm really not liable when you see you later. That's the purpose behind an LLC. So a lot of these companies that are popping up are falling into that category. Yes, they're lawful, they follow the law, and they follow the full extent of the law, including how to get out of business when it's time to get out of business. So I just want to, John had earlier brought that up as part of his discussion, and it's a very valid point, particularly when one of the areas on these solar arrays, because I refuse to call them farms as well. They're not farming anything, not growing anything. It is the mere fact that they got to put aside a bond for dismantling and all this other stuff. Who knows in 20 years from now if it's really there, or that company still exists? Who do you go after if it's not there? Where's the defaulting mechanism? And what was the company to begin with? That happened in power generation, hardcore power plants. It happened in Bellingham, it happened in Charlton, it happened with none of them when they had all the incentives to use natural gas on these quick hit power plants that went up. They were supposed to have 10-year shelf lives to them, but they're trying to find them, make them longer. All right, because they didn't amortize them out the way they should have. And a lot of companies had moved away from them. I worked close with the one in Charlton. And when John mentioned what he did, it just rang a bell with me. They're on their 6th owner. Okay, they're still operating. But every time they change, all right, somebody loses out. Some bill doesn't get paid because the original one moved away. So that's something I think is a real concern when looking at these companies that come in. Thank you. Hi, Jack. Hey. Sorry, I didn't see you.
Didn't we already hear your wife?
I'm Mr. Hurst. I am not against any type of power array coming from the sun, but you were talking about how there were maybe something missing with the new technology that's here. And no one mentioned it yet, and what it looks like it actually follows the sun. So whatever you guys have now in town just faces the south. There are people that do have things that actually raise up in a form of a sunflower. And it opens up during the time that the sun is out and follows it as the sun goes. Now, the amount of money that the amount of power that you're taking in compared to this stationary facing south, I think is over 50%. And it looks nice. Also, the town never gets anything by having something like this set in stone and looks like a sore eye for everybody versus a flower that follows the sun. Why can't we take the residuals from that and put it back into the town? That's my solution. I don't want to cause a problem. I want to cause, somebody to have a problem to present a solution. And that's where I'm at. That's all.
Okay. Anybody else like to speak? Going once?
Well, I'm going to just add.
Never let her husband get the last word.
That's right, I was just going to say that. I can't let my husband have the last word. Kathy Hurst. One thing that wasn't mentioned was the life expectancy of a solar array. It loses 5% of its efficiency every year. And so in a matter of 20 years, it's out of usefulness, so to say. So if at that point in time these things have to be dismantled, they are considered hazardous materials, and it is a very extreme cost to dispose of these things. And whether or not a company that has put them in will take the responsibility of doing that, as other speakers have said, we don't know that. So that's another thing to consider. These things are not going to last forever. And another point, I think a lot of people when and I know I've seen this on the town forum page, people make comments like, well, maybe this will help lower our electricity bills. A lot of people don't realize when they see these solar arrays on the ground that they think somehow the town is getting some energy from it, or it's going to help them with their energy costs. What they don't realize is that most of the time it's a out-of-state company coming in. They come to an area. It's a for-profit organization. They build it on our town land, take the profits. Maybe they give a little pittance to the town for putting up with them, but in actuality, it's a money-making profit system for the company that's building these places. And in most towns that have them, the power is not going to the citizens. I know that, my husband's from Shrewsbury, and Shrewsbury is known to have their own cable, town cable and electricity. And so that does benefit those people because they do have lower costs for those things. But in this case, these solar farms, solar arrays placed in this town do nothing for the people of the town and their power. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make one correction for the record. When I mentioned the Charlton plan, I used a hard number 6 on 6 owners. I want to retract that. But it has been multiple owners, but I don't want to use a hard number. But it has been multiple owners, so my concept remains intact. But I just didn't want the hard number to be there.
Okay. Anyone else like to speak?
I just wondered what your personal thoughts, the board's personal thoughts are about this. If you could share them with us, please.
First two questions. Is that possible?
Never ask Dan his personal thoughts.
So this is just a general question. Anybody can answer. I'd appreciate it. Just a little insight. The article here is allowing these large-scale solar arrays in the industrial 43 and industrial 130s, but not in the light industry 43 and light industry 87. Is there a reason? What was the reasoning for that?
Because I think they just belong in the heavy industrial areas. That's a personal opinion.
I just heard that they've talking about putting on roofs of large-scale buildings.
Roofs are fine.
Yeah.
Roofs are fine. Roofs are fine.
Right, yeah, and only in the industrial 83s and 130, but not in the light industrial.
No, roofs are fine.
Did I read it wrong?
Yeah.
No.
Roofs, carports.
At the bottom, Dan, it says the bylaw is not intended to regulate
It's not
systems.
intended to disrupt that.
All right.
I think it's wonderful that there will be, I think, one on the landfill, what used to be the landfill. Is that in the pipeline?
It hasn't been brought forward to us yet.
What's the holdup on that one? It seems like a perfect location of the southern exposure.
It's whether or not it's large enough for the application, and when you put a system like that on top of a landfill, you have to remember that that landfill has a liner, and it was capped, so there's a liner there, so that they can't really go back and drive steel or aluminum poles into the ground, because they'd be poking a liner and you'd have methane gas coming out everywhere. So they have to do it a certain way. Typically on a landfill, what they do is they have like polypropylene buckets, large buckets, like wash buckets that they use for dogs or even like for cattle to drink out of.
Yeah.
They'll fill that full of concrete, and they'll put a sleeve in there so that they can put the racking inside the concrete bucket.
So it's
It all
large
remains on
pad.
top.
It remains on
A
top.
different method of installation.
Different method of installation. But they don't typically, that method of installation doesn't work good on steep slopes because it can slide down the hill, and we got a pretty steep hill there. So they got to come up with a way that, as far as I know, they got to come up with a way that they can anchor it to the hill but not puncture the liner or hurt the cap that's already been put in place for the landfill, because if that happens, then we're going to end up with bigger problems.
I have one more question. Going back to the old Easterbrook farm across from Shepherd Hill, what kind of money does the town generate from that area?
Okay, well, that's a good question. So I looked that up before the meeting because I wanted to, in case somebody asked, I wanted to know. So basically, Don has all the spreadsheets right there, but I can tell you what I just read. The starting payout for that particular solar farm was around $32,000, and it increases 2.5% every year. The last payout for the year 20 on that solar farm, I believe, is $47,000 to the town. The other solar farm that we have off of Farley Road, that one's a much smaller solar farm, and that's obviously less money. But if you were to combine the two solar farms that we currently have contributing to the town of Dudley on the last year that they're in place, it's over $50,000 of tax per year to the town of Dudley. And if you want to know in reference, what would that be like as far as tax revenue? The factory that the factory that Gentex owns is appraised or assessed at right now around $5.2 million. They currently pay about $52,000 a year in taxes, or that's what they would be assessed at. But one thing that you don't know, or I don't know, I don't work in the assessor's office, is that I know in past times, Gentex, as well as other companies in town, have come to town and asked for tax tips if they're going to add on to their building or make improvements, and they've gotten them.
Like pilot program?
No, pilot programs are different. So that, I'll just go over that quickly, because I think what Mr. Raymond was talking about earlier was not exactly true. I mean, the previous solar farm that was going in off of, that was going to be below Partridge Hill Road and off of Corbin Road.
Off of Ramson.
Off of Ramson Road, okay. So that particular project, like all solar projects, they have the opportunity to do what they call a pilot program, payment in lieu of taxes.
Right.
When you set up solar panels on a private piece of property, the town cannot tax that because that's personal property. So what they do is they figure out, okay, this solar farm or this solar array is worth X amount of dollars and it's generating this much electricity, so we're gonna recommend, we can't tell them how much they have to pay, they have to voluntarily do this. And they come in and they say, okay, we see that this property's worth X amount of dollars, this, this is what we're proposing for a pilot program. And like I said, it starts out at one payment and it goes up 2% every year. So just like your, Proposition 2.5, our taxes in our houses go up 2.5% every year. So they're almost keeping up with the inflation. And this is money that the solar company is paying to the town in lieu of taxes because they're not required to pay taxes. So they are paying, and they are paying at a much higher rate, as you can tell, because a factory such as Gentex is huge and worth over $5 million, and a solar farm that's, or the two solar farms that we currently have in town are going to be paying, in essence, more taxes than a company such as Gentex is paying. So, that's just to give you an idea of where it is. The larger the solar farm, the more money they're going to pay, for sure. The smaller solar farm, the less they pay. But that's, for the two that we currently have, that's what we're collecting right now.
So back to my original question, could you share your thoughts?
My
Any of
thoughts.
your board members?
My thoughts is, I'm not against solar arrays or solar farms or whatever you could call it. I think it puts the town in a hard spot, being on the planning board for 12 years. I think it puts the planning board and the town in a hard spot when somebody comes to you and says, I've got this piece of land, it's not really, sometimes it's not really good for anything else. Or the other situation could be, I got this piece of land, it's perfect for development, but I'd rather not develop it. But I need to make some money, and I'm proposing to put a solar array on it. So if I put a solar array on it, and I'm not putting in 50 or 60 houses, which is in essence gonna hurt the tax base, can I do this? Having the overlay district in place gives everybody that has this, any kind of piece of property in town, as long as it's not, like I said, agriculturally protected, APR land, or Chapter 61 or 61A, or part of the conservation district. If you have a piece of land and that's what you're looking to make some money. If you're a retired person and you need to supplement your income versus selling your property and having it developed, this is a way you get to keep the property and still get some income. And I think it's, for that situation, I think it's a good situation. Or the other situation that I brought up, if you have a piece of land that's not really good for anything else.
But again, how can you write an order of conditions to screen that from a public way?
Well, as you can tell, in some cases you can't. But in some cases you can. It depends on the topography of the land. If you have a site that's 20 feet above all the roadways, you're going to drive by, you're going to be looking at a hillside. You're not going to be looking at a solar array if it's 20 feet in the air. You won't see it. But if it's 20 feet below the roadway and you're driving on the edge, yeah, you might be able to look down and see it. But if it's even with the roadway or on a slope, such as what we have in front of the high school, yeah. I knew that from when we had the public hearing and the engineer came and said, we're going to plant some trees and take care of it. I was the one that said, I'd really like to see the green fencing go up because I know the trees aren't going to take care of it. And he was insistent that the tree...
Green fencing would have to be 25, 30 feet.
Right.
And
Because
I was at that hearing, and I remember asking how they were going to keep it mowed and what was the time frame in terms of, is it going to be mowed twice a year, 3 times a year? And he looked at me and he said, we are going to have sheep. And the sheep are going to graze under the fence. Like I have 3 heads. And I have yet to see sheep or a goat over there, but there's a lot of invasive species.
Okay. Spirit.
I'll sign in now too, officially.
Okay.
Through the chair to Dan. If the light industrial, that being not included, concerns you, then maybe the planning board simply add the light industrial for the time being. All I'm hoping for is a pause, right? Make sure that any bonding company is, 3, 4, 5-star rated by AM Best. That they're not a fly-by-night operation. Make sure they've got the electrical permits. and maybe over the next 6 months, 12 months, really go through the bylaw, tweak it, and then again, look at the area and say, where, instead of doing an overlay district, where does it make sense to actually do this? As far as revenue, taxes, as we bring agricultural land back onto the table here and into production, there will be an agricultural renaissance in Dudley. We have a young millennial farmer bought an old abandoned farm and got the first hemp license in 100 years, Dudley. Hemp right now, certain breeds actually can produce $75,000 an acre for a farmer. All right. Dudley at one point in time was the hemp capital of New England. That's why all the mills are here. That's what the clothing was made out of. So between that, we have existing farms that continue to grow. There's biotechnology. I think it's short-sighted to look at, because maybe we're making $40,000, $50,000 now. If one of these farms goes belly up, or these arrays go belly up 10 years from now, every dime you made is going into the cleanup and restoration. So, I'm a firm believer, bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. I understand, but don't cut yourself short on the agricultural revenue opportunities of putting that land back into production as well. And again, all I'm asking is just for a pause button here. Our bylaw doesn't work, right? I mean, so let's clean it up. Let's figure out the areas, and that way we're not fighting every town meeting like they say. That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Breer, maybe a question for you.
Sure.
If the agricultural does start producing, like you say, how would the town benefit from a tax standpoint on that?
Well, APR land is, there's different rates. So forestry right now is the lowest rate. Tobacco is one of the highest. I believe hemp is going into the tobacco category. So you get on existing forest land that may be doing, $60, in revenue, you might be producing, 7, 8 times that amount. Excise taxes. Hopefully, people buying new cars and building. I mean, again, their houses don't count. So maybe they're going to upgrade their homes and do that. Bring in workers as well. The agricultural committee is working on, taking advantage of even like this, the tourists coming into the Sturbridge area, right? And, doing tours and camps. And, I mean, who knows where it's going to go? What I'm saying is, again, not opposed to solar in the right district, but we don't want to eat up our prime, agricultural lands with solar farms. And I mean, a lot of the stuff that was pointed out today, I didn't even think about the fires, right? I mean, you get barren dirt, no trees, no shade. Yeah, I mean, that explains fire. I didn't even think about a fire risk, so there's pros and cons to everything, so.
When you use the measurement of Gentex versus the revenue from Gentex and the revenue from solar farms, I think we're missing one important point. You measured it based on the tax base of Gentex versus what you're getting out of the solar farms. The revenue coming from Gentex to the town of Dudley far exceeds the tax base. There's people working there, there's ancillary industries, there's people spending money in town because of Gentex. You're not going to get that from a solar farm. Okay? So, I mean, it's, when we get right down to the economics of it, it's apples and oranges if you're just using the tax base of Gentex.
What I would say is that, for a comparison, is we would have to get another factory built the size of Gentex to equal the amount of.
I don't see that to be true, but due to the fact you're only using the Gentex tax base. You're not using what Gentex generates for revenue for the town of Dudley. They employ people, those people spend money in town, they buy their gas in town, they spend their money in town. They generate a myriad of income for the town of Dudley beyond the tax base. A solar farm will not do that.
Good point.
Anyone else like to speak? Did you wanna
So there's
give
no
your-
one in here that's in favor of solar arrays?
I think they're wonderful on a
The right
private
place.
home.
In the
right area.
and-
So it's the
and
right
where
area
they
is the thing.
belong. Not residential.
Yeah, I'll share my public opinion, my personal opinion. So, I moved to Dudley from Rhode Island about a year ago now, a little over a year ago. I moved to Dudley because of the kind of town it is, small town, right? Lots of open land. I love that. I think it's a great feature of the town. I mirror a lot of your opinions for sure about solar arrays. I wouldn't want one popping up. I have a bunch of woods behind my house. If someone leveled all that and put a solar array in, I'd be gone. I would leave because I don't want that. However, I do try to remain open-minded because I was driving through Grafton today on my way back from work, and there's these $750,000 houses, gorgeous houses, right up the road from Tufts Veterinary School. And I had my windows down because it's a nice day, and I would tell you this smell coming off of that active agricultural land. I would much rather drive down that road, and I hate to say this, right, is see solar panels, because I can keep my windows down and I don't have to get.
But that's a temporary thing. That might,
Yeah.
yeah, when it rains, it's gone, that's, you know,
I
you must
dri-
come from the city.
I drive-
because a couple of days in the spring that you can handle a little.
But what I say that to say, these people spend a ton of money in the houses, pay a lot of taxes, right? And they still have to subject to that, whether it's 3, 4, 10, 15
was there
days.
first, they moved to
Right.
it.
But at the end of the day, what I'm saying is I just want to keep, and that's just one aspect, right? We also have to stay open-minded to how else are we going to produce energy, right? We want to build these houses and let people move in, facilitate the mills being redeveloped. Where does electricity come from? So we're going to have to build a coal, natural gas plant somewhere, a wind turbine somewhere.
I'm not buying that. They just closed down the largest plant in New England
Right.
5 years ago. They just, 2 weeks ago, blew up their cooling towers. The largest power plant in New England, Braden Point in Somerset, Mass., they shut it down. There's a glut of power out there. Trust me, there's a glut of power. And the consumption of power is at an all-time low based upon the population base. When we used to, I'll just use this as an example. If on a yearly average, if it took 100 kilowatts per person to sponsor, because of technology today, it probably takes about 70 kilowatts. The use of the product is going down, and the technology of the product production is going up. There's no problem with power in this country. It's just what kind of power do you want it to be? You got the coal mines wanting to open back up, so they want coal burning power plants. You want the oil producers to burn oil. You got the solar array people making panels, they want to put their panels up. You got the wind farms, they're trying to do their thing. There's more ways to make power in this country than you can shake a stick at, and there's not a power problem in this country at all. The only problem with power in this country is maybe in the area of distribution and transmission. It is not in generation.
Yeah, like I said, I mirror most of your opinions. I say that we should just remain open-minded to it and understand that we're going to have to source at some point, 100 years down the road, when all of us are gone, we're going to have to make sure we're setting our future generations up so Dudley remains a great place to live. Because that's what I think about. I think about the generations, how we're going to set the town up, right? As a whole, as a board, that's our job, is to be in the best interest of the town. I mean, you guys have clearly voiced your opinions tonight on what, like the chairman said, there's not one person in here that said, I think we should, not do this petition. So clearly you guys all think for that. And at the end of the day, our job is to vote on the best interest of the town, not.
We are the town.
We are the
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm
No,
saying.
you guys, we.
No, they are too.
Well, they are.
They're part of town.
One, two, three. I think we have a quorum. Let's go.
No.
Well, I said it to say, again, my personal opinion, I exactly understand what you guys are saying. I completely share it. That's my personal opinion. But again, like John said, this is an ongoing thing. We're working on it, as a town, been working on it for a long time.
You heard our concerns. Thanks for your time.
Correct.
Appreciate it.
And we definitely did. We definitely heard you guys' concerns.
Anyone else?
Me again.
I'll sign in anyway.
You spoke.
Probably too much, but.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
You just won't let your husband.
No. Kathy Hurst, Camelot Circle. I would just like to know, why would there be any opposition in keeping solar arrays / farms out of residential areas? You gave an example of a person that might have an extra lot next to him or acreage next to him, and they want to generate more money. Well, what gives that resident the right to generate more money on that land and spoil it for all the people around him that don't want that solar array there, bringing down their house? That's why there's zoning. You know, that's why we just want to keep it out of the residential areas. They can go on top of buildings. You see them, I think it was in Framingham where there was a massive parking lot, and they made it like a carport thing, and then the whole top of that was a solar array. Places like that, industrial areas, commercial areas, brownfields, already disturbed land where nothing else can go. I just don't think it's right to, people move into an area, I'm not going to move to the city, and I'm not going to move on Main Street in a little town. I want to be in a residential area with some land around me. I move in there and I have that expectation, and I expect that to stay relatively the same way. I don't want it to turn into an industrial park next to me, which is what would happen if there was a solar array. So if a person himself, I can make money by generating some solar power off my land next to me, but that's good for him, but it's not good for the people around him who don't want that. So that's not like a win-win situation for all people. So for instance, I live on Camelot Circle. We moved there like 22 years ago. I can't have a clothesline. I can't build a shed in that area because it is not what the character of that neighborhood is supposed to be. So why should somebody be able to build a solar farm, which is a lot more obtrusive than a clothesline? So, I think that you can't just say, oh, it's good for this one person. If it's not good for the whole community or the whole neighborhood, it shouldn't be there,
Again, the community and the neighborhood will get the chance to voice that opinion when it goes to town meeting.
Why should we have to fight every?
I know, I was going to say, why do you want to fight every time? That's why I don't know. Do you think that it's so important to put these things in residential neighborhoods? When you have light industrial, commercial, landfills, rooftops, all this other places, designate them the area where they should be, put it on there so when power companies come in and they see, okay, if I want to do something in that town, this is where I have to go, and leave the normal person alone in the residential areas.
Gail Donahue, Ramshorn Road, Dudley. I've listened to everybody. I agree with the group. The question I have is, I had it at the last town meeting in the fall. I asked, how much revenue are we going to get from this? And that's when this Ramshorn, Partridge Hill thing was all. How much are we going to get? Nobody could answer me. So that's like saying, here, we'll give you guys that, and maybe you can give me something, or maybe not. And when you're done, we'll clean it up. Don't worry about it. We need something, and we can't just have, okay, today the microphone's here, tomorrow it will be there. But it's not going to be in my backyard because I live over here. It's got to be, it was a residential, or it was farm, or it's, industrial, but they've got to stay. You can't just keep going, now we get $20,000, and then now we get another $20,000. My understanding of that Ramshorn Road area and part of the Partridge Hill Road being fixed in order to put that up there, or in lieu of taxes, or in lieu of whatever, goes back, and this I might have to be corrected, but goes back to the time that the owner of this property that wants to put the solar array was supposed to fix that road initially. And he never did, when he put the houses in, and he never did. So now we're going back to giving him a second chance. Oh, okay, well, all right, we're going to give you a break again. When the guy already scooted. That guy owes the town the taxes. That shouldn't come out of a solar farm, and the solar farm shouldn't go in where it's already been residential, and there's farmlands, there's trees, there's wildlife. It's just, I don't like the hopscotching with the zoning, and it seems every time something happens, and all of a sudden, hindsight is 20/20. Damn, we should have done that. We should have thought of that. So in putting it on hold, in taking a break, take a breath, let's communicate more. Let's find out more. Let this group reach out more to the town. Let's see if we can get more ideas. You know, there are a lot smarter people out there than me, and it'd be great to listen to them and see what we can come up with as a town. Because these solar abortions are not our town. They're not our town's people. They could care less about this town. And what we need to do is, as a town, care for our town first. And it's not always taxes. Oh, we get 20,000 from this. Oh, because you have to look at the big picture. And the big picture isn't that amount of money, because as has been said before, that company could go belly up. Now the town is responsible to clean all that up. Oh no, maybe it's the guy that owns the land. Oh no, he's out of state now, so now it's back to the town. Oh well, maybe we'll wait for somebody else to come along. We'll, do something else with that property and have him clean it up. It's not a good solution or a good plan. Planning board, it's not a good plan to begin with. There's too many ifs. And I think that's what we're all kind of trying to reach for. I might have not said it as eloquently as other people have, but I think that's the problem. It's not us against you, I was joking. Because you are the town, we are the town, and there are more people in town that I think might be more concerned. But as somebody said, they're busy. They got kids, people are working 2-3 jobs. I don't have cable TV. I can't see the town meetings. So what I get from neighbors and friends, and I get as involved as I can. But hopefully we'll have a quorum. I just don't want it to go to the quorum yet. I don't think it's ready. I don't think it's ready to just lay out there without more discussion and more planning. Just like putting up a building. There's a lot of planning that goes into it rather than just, whoop, we'll get 30,000. Done. Okay, bye.
She just brought up a very good point and never even get into consideration. First of all, the petition is to be proactive so we can stop fighting this thing at town meetings all the time. We set the parameters so there's less of these problems that go to town meeting to develop that. But in her discussion with you, she brought up something interesting. You don't have cable. More and more people are cutting the cord on cable and streaming. So there's no public access TV to them to even see these meetings or town meetings or anything else. That's an evolution that's going on, and if we're relying on cable access to show these meetings or town meetings, something like that, we're behind the 8 ball. We really, really are. More and more people are streaming.
These all end up on YouTube on the town website.
Yes.
Well, I don't know.
So they'd have to go that way to find out. Well, let's put it this way.
That's going to change.
We're off topic.
I'm not a technique, but I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Right.
within a day or a week, you got it.
But I think it's a concern. We have to,
Yep.
But the petition is meant to be proactive. It really is to, we identified a problem last year. We were somewhat successful in where the concern was on Ramson Road. And if you notice, The one that wasn't opposed was the old industrial site that went residential back in part of the overlay up on the Oxford, up by the Oxford gravel pit. There was no opposition to that because it wasn't a bad place to put it.
Makes sense.
And it made sense. So there was no opposition. And it probably would have fell within the parameters of what the petition's laying out. And if it doesn't, well, let's find a way that it can. Okay? But the petition is meant to be proactive so we don't have to fight everything at town meeting. And I shouldn't use the word fight. We shouldn't have to bring our concerns and have these discussions. And because what's happened is we're coming neighbor against neighbor, you know, and the people at Partridge Hill are really upset at us because they had one vision. They wanted their road fixed, and I don't blame them. You know, but it was they saw that as their only savior to get their road fixed. Well, damn it, you know what we asked them to do? Write a petition and we'll support it to get their damn road fixed for the town. Because the ball was dropped on them. But we can't be fighting this every damn time. Let's be proactive and put something together that can work for everybody. You know, if this isn't it, what is it? But as of right now, we got 2 weeks left, 12 days left before the town meeting. You know, this is what we got, and this is what we're going to support. You know, and we hope we have some semblance of support from the planning board. You know, I know you're going to give your recommendation. You're going to give it in what you truly believe is the best interest of the town. I don't deny that. It may be different from what we think. It may not be, but hopefully we can come to some conclusion to get this thing done.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Again.
All right. If nobody else has any comments, we're going to close the public hearing. Okay. Public hearing closed at 8:44.
Thank you, guys.
We're going to get out of here so you can finish your business.
We gotta vote on this.
Thanks for your time. Welcome to town.
If you want to stay, we can vote on it right now.
I'm sitting down.
What are we voting on?
Sure, yell at the John.
Good job. We can vote on this right now, right?
Don't worry about it, John.
Wait a minute. He leaves me alone. He's needed here.
He's out in the parking lot.
Sure, we'll vote right now.
You guys are efficient.
We don't want to leave it all for the town meeting. Okay, so closing the public hearing, the first thing we need to vote on is the
Kennels?
kennels. Yep, I'm trying to get back there. So we've got Article
29.
28 and 29?
Just 29.
29, because 28 is
actually
the
Town bylaw.
town bylaw, okay. So 29. Article 29, Planning Board amendments, zoning bylaw, see if the town will amend zoning bylaws relative to kennels. I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but basically we went over it. It's just we wanna emulate what the state has for rules and regulations as, pursuant to kennels and residential kennels and commercial kennels and personal kennels. So, you're looking for a motion, what do we use for terminology?
To recommend the
Recommend
article
the article.
as printed.
Motion to recommend the article as printed, there was no changes necessary.
Motion to recommend the town meeting approve the article as printed in the warrant.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion to recommend the article as printed in the warrant at town meeting.
I'll make a motion to, exactly as you just said,
Okay,
for the article number 29, the
29.
town warrant.
Second that motion?
we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous? All right, and the last article, the petition article was number
34.
34. Okay, Article 34, the petition article regarding large-scale solar voltaic bylaw. Somebody want to make a motion to,
I'll make a motion to recommend the passing of the article number 34 to the town meeting as stated in the legal notice.
okay, we have
Close
a,
enough?
Yeah. It's town councils, and we may have to tweak a few words here and there.
okay, yeah, we did have town council review this, and there may be some tweaking of the words, because they were concerned with the historic districts being mentioned, that you may not be able to dictate it in a historic district, because...
There isn't one in zoning anyway. So it
Right.
the historic, the terminology historic district wouldn't be applicable because there isn't one in zoning per se. I know that language got in there, but there's no historic zoning district. And this is the zoning bylaws for uses.
They were trying to designate a historic district near.
But that, yeah, but see, that's not really zoning, that's a different aspect, it's a different state law, it's a different process.
Yeah, so we might
we have to take those
we might
words
have to
out.
omit the words historic districts for it to pass at town meeting.
So I'll amend my motion that we incorporate all comment from council.
Town council.
Town
yeah.
council.
We're gonna vote to support the written petition article based on the input from the town council, whatever they recommend at town meeting. So if they change a word or two, we're gonna go with their.
So you're supporting it?
Well, we're making the motion right now.
To
You
support
support
it.
it?
To support it, yes.
Yeah, so you know by this vote if we support it or we don't support it.
Okay.
So, we have a
We have a
motion.
motion.
Do we have a second?
Make a strong second motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. So,
Thank you.
all right.
Thank you all for coming.
Wonderful.
When can we see a redrafted copy of the article?
Probably at the town meeting? Will it
We
be
have-
posted beforehand?
We should have it by the town meeting?
As we get town meeting, yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna, having a meeting 30 minutes before the town meeting at 6:30. We're gonna meet there, so we'll have that at our meeting.
We'll have it at 6:30 before the town meeting?
Yes.
We're in the auditorium, in the cafeteria?
Cafeteria,
All
yeah,
right, we can get a copy then?
sure,
Okay.
yep,
Thank you, guys.
yep. All right. Is there anything on the planner's plate?
Got about 2 hours worth.
Well,
Be mindful of the time there, Don. The Celtics are on tonight, you realize that, right?
Dan's gonna start the fire.
Celtics are playing.
Red Sox too.
Do or die.
No,
That's,
there's not that much. I told you about last week that I'm having to take over some transitional things to bring to the next town administrator. We're working with Greg Balcones on that.
Okay,
A couple things like the drainage, the EPA
I
drainage,
know it, I got it.
and
Just go to town website.
Yeah,
The
but
MVP
the
grant.
overall bill goes down.
I'm like chief administrator on that right now. But
Okay.
some of that will carry over into the new town administrator, but we'll work through that.
yeah, I mean, do whatever you can to support them. You know, we're not gonna tell you not to, for sure, because it's, you know, it's hard to change from one town administrator to another, so it's, if
Yeah.
any support you can give the new town administrator, that's, by all means, go ahead and do what you can.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, I don't think we're gonna get any more comments from the audience.
Any more comments?
Is there any other comments from the planning board?
I'd like to give a shout out to our former member Greg.
Yep, yeah.
Short but sweet, appreciate him serving on the board, and best of luck to him in his new endeavors.
Yep.
Best of luck, Greg.
Yeah, just so everybody knows, Mr. Benoit had to resign his position at the planning board due to the fact that he's now employed by the state of Massachusetts, and it might be seen as a conflict of interest, so he resigned after the last meeting, but we thank him for his service, even though it was a short time, but congratulate him in his new position, and thank him again for his work on the board. And, yeah, I think that's it. Anything else? Okay, we have a motion to adjourn.
I can second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous.